We'll take a break, and when we come back, Sowore will be joining us in just a moment. Stay with us.
All right, just before we get into our next segment, let us show you yet again our question of the day. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu is on a state visit to the UK, and we're asking, what are your expectations from the president's state visits? So let us know. Send your feedback to our WhatsApp number, which is just right there on your screen. What are your expectations from President Tinubu's visit to the UK? We're now joined on the program by former presidential candidate of AAC, Mr. Sowore. He's live with us from our Abuja studio. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Very good morning to you.
I think it's only fitting to start with your own response to the question of the day. What are your expectations, Mr. Sowore, or perhaps a lack of it, from President Bola Tinubu's state visit to the UK?
None. It's an excursion, and I don't think it's going to add any value to the current situation in Nigeria. My expectation would have been for this particular state visit to be cancelled and for the president to have moved as the commander-in-chief of the armed forces to Maiduguri, where the insurgency led by Boko Haram has taken a different turn. I do not expect that anything will come out of it other than the fanfare. It's just a colonial servant going back to his colonial master after he claimed that they've gained independence, nothing more.
So with all the gains, so for instance, Mr. Sowore, they've talked about some investment that will be coming into our ports to upscale activities within the port and perhaps expand the activities of the port in, I think, Tinkan and two of the ports in Lagos. Plus other relationship that perhaps will be strengthened. We have a size of relationship that is in the region of maybe in excess of 9 to 10 billion pounds in that sense. So the argument is that this is important as far as having a seat on the table. We even have the Bonga field that's working on being developed. The FID, I think, almost completed or being completed. So we should be expecting exploitation, say, in the region in maybe 2027. And that will add another 150,000 barrels of crude to the ones we're struggling with, annualized 1.4, 1.5, or 1.4 in this sense. So doesn't it mean something as much as we cannot discountenance some failures in terms of national security?
No, you see, what you've actually stated is that Nigeria has got a lot more to offer to the UK than the UK has to offer Nigeria. If Nigeria had been properly governed over these years, our economy would probably be competing or bigger than that of the United Kingdom by now. Till tomorrow, most of their companies are making the biggest amount of profit from Nigeria. Shell, Royal Dutch Shell, which has a very prominent UK presence, is making billions from Nigeria. They're still doing that. So you don't need to travel to the UK if your country is working to go and sign agreements that could be signed by, the councillor of a local government or even the finance minister or, the minister in charge of investment. What I'm saying is that, telling these stories over and over again is kind of tiresome. We heard them in 1989 when Buhari went and Babangida went there. Oh, he's going to sign agreements. We're going to buy tanks. As if you need to travel to the UK to buy tanks and where are those tanks today? Where is the prosperity that was promised in 1989? So you are back in 2026, to put on your Christmas dress and go and kneel before the king or queen just so that you can get investment. If you have it right, investors will come to your country. You don't need to travel. I'm not discountenancing the fact that, we can have relationship with countries and have some of this fanfare. But what I dislike, is the dishonesty around the fact that this is going to be the reason why Nigeria will prosper. No, it's not. These visits are no more than excursions, diplomatic excursions, and perhaps, the president's way of also seeing his doctors. It's not traveled in about a month. So I'm just saying, beyond the fanfare you're seeing on TV, and it doesn't bring anything to Nigeria that Nigeria cannot get or should not have. So That's the point I'm making. And we're just deceiving ourselves all the time by saying each time we travel. I challenged them the last time I think I was on this show to tell you a single dime that they have brought from their, these foreign tours, other than just burning, the fuel in the air with our aircraft, and the cost. The cost of these travels far more at the end outweigh whatever will come from the so-called investments and that they claim are going to happen. So that's just what I know, and it has been the story of Nigeria. We don't question these things. Like, why would the travel of the president be couched as something that will bring investment? It's not going to bring any investment. This is just to go and waste money, time, energy, and to go and bow to, on the altars of the fallen colonial gods in the UK.
Well, we hope that we could return to this table to say that indeed the visit brought in some investment, but we'll keep our eyes close to that process and see how it turns out, especially for Nigerians back home.
So let me tell you, sometimes some of these are musicians who go and perform in the UK. They bring in more money into Nigeria than when the president travels to the UK or anywhere. We lose money when you send these guys over. All of them are going to go, huge delegation. They're going to stay in 5-star hotels, incur debts, expenses. Monies that Nigeria don't have is what's going to get wasted, not any investment. There's no investment that's coming from this trip that we can't get even if we don't leave.
Yep. I was going to ask if that is verifiable, but I don't want to spend time on that. There's so many areas to touch, Mr. Sowore. Starting with the case in court for which you're being tried for cybercrime. We waited on it earlier on, but because you were in court, perhaps you want to give us an update, not necessarily speaking to the substance of the case, but tell us what transpired that may have caused the judge to ask your lead counsel in that case to kneel, a matter that is a thing that is unknown to relations between the bar and the bench.
Yeah, I was in a dock, and I must tell you that I was shocked. I've been in courts a lot. I've been in courts in the U.S., been in courts in Nigeria, and I've witnessed court trials online and on TV before. I've never seen what transpired on that day between that judge and our lead lawyer, a very vibrant, young lawyer, barrister Marshall Abubakar. So he was making a point, that was our lawyer, that he wants to properly cross-examine the DSS witness who apparently didn't want to be helpful. He was brought in as the only witness, and he was asking questions, and so we had a litany of questions, and the judge kept interrupting him. At a point, the judge first made a comment, an opinion that I thought could have even ended the case. He said, well, I just want to warn you, if you over cross-examine this witness, you will lose your case. And I've never heard that before, that proper cross-examination of a witness will make you lose a case. So, but Abubakar, being a very thorough and tenacious lawyer, kept at it and said, my lord, you have to give me the chance to complete my cross-examination because it's very key to this question. At the point he got emotional, I said, my lord, you guys are planning in this kangaroo process to jail Sowore, and the future of this country relies on people like him. And the judge took umbrage at that. And after a while, we had an argument over adjournments. And I stood up, even in court, I spoke to the judge and said, Lord, you know that elections are coming, May. And you can't just give us an abrupt adjournment. We need time to prepare for this trial. You have to take into consideration the political calendar of the country. And he said, no, he doesn't care. And Abubakar stood and said, please, we need a date that gives us enough time to prepare for a no-case submission. And the judge insisted on April 13th. That was the point at which Abubakar spoke again to him and said, my lord, this is unfair. We need adequate time to prepare to respond because we knew what they were up to. They want to quickly rush the case. By the way, they had told us that they were bringing in Reno Omokri as a witness to the federal government. But suddenly they decided that they're not bringing any more witnesses. So we needed time to prepare, and that was the point at which the judge said, well, I told you to stop this cross-examination, and you're not stopping. You're getting on my nerves. You should come over here and kneel down in front of me. And that's, of course, the lawyer didn't even flinch. He said under his breath, he said, my lord, asking me to come and kneel down before you for contempt of court is unknown to law. And I think it dawned on the judge at that point that, of course, there were other lawyers who were pleading as usual. You know, lawyers always say that they're pleased with whatever judges say, even when the judge is wrong. It's their language. And then the judge, upon realizing that he actually messed up, rose and left the courtroom abruptly, having adjourned the case till April 13. That's what happened.
Well, the NBA has weighed in on it. We hope that the NJC will also weigh in on it in some form or measure. But you mentioned elections when you were talking, and would like to draw out what could be the benefit of, you know, that part of your work as an activist. This is just one out of many cases. By the way, the prior one to this one, you have won against the former Inspector General of Police. Your activism has produced results in the area of end bad governance. We've seen you actively work for the people of Makoko, just to mention a few. But we're wondering why your activism has not produced results in the area of elections, and what difference that would make, for instance, if we had partnerships between the AAC and perhaps other political parties that could produce viable opposition in the National Assembly, for instance, or even in some state assemblies, whereby the feet of the ruling party will be put to fire and there will be results in the area of accountability and perhaps some form of dividend of democracy for the people. Are you putting more attention on activism in the area of defense of human rights and less in the area of your politicking?
No, the activism that you've always identified me with is such that the country can get better at the initial stages. But it got to a point where it is beyond just getting better. We can't get better if we don't get rid of certain practices, if we don't get rid of certain political tendencies or political people. I'm not saying physical getting rid of them. I'm talking about their tendencies, their prebendalism, and the fact that they have nothing to offer. That's why I was radically involved in seeking for a revolution since 2019. When people talk about election, I have stated it, we participate in elections not because we know that elections by themselves can resolve Nigeria's problem, but elections are opportunities for people's eyes to open to the fact that maybe elections don't work either. But because I'm my activism started as a pro-democracy and human rights activist, so you would understand that I load higher on the defense of human rights. But what is politics supposed to be about in general? Is it not supposed to defend human rights, social, economic, and physical security of the people, and the integrity of your country, your culture, your language, providing welfare for the people? That's what politics is all about. But when we talk about politics in Nigeria, people even forget the definition of politics, the textbook definition. We only think of politics in the realm of how to grab election ballot boxes, beat and kill people, and then swear in people who did not win who didn't win these elections. So until these elections really happen, democratic elections, you can't have democratic development, and you cannot have real people participate and win elections when you don't organize elections the way they're supposed to be organized. And this is what I have persistently told those of you asking me this question. There's no difference between fighting for human rights and running for office. In fact, in running for office, you are there to advance administratively the rights of people to get what they need. That is what running for office ought to be. So our participation is not limited to just running for elections. And I've stated this to many people in the media over time that my involvement in politics is not for the election calendar. It is for the greater good, a higher goal, and an opportunity for Nigerians to see the difference between what I stand for and what their current conditions situation is in the country. So I can't come here and keep lamenting that we didn't win elections when you and I know that we are not organizing elections as they should be organized. We just last time talked about the Electoral Act, where we took one step forward and we are taking 10 steps backward. So how do you expect results to reflect the will of the people when you deny the people the transparency to even see the results of the election in which they participated as soon as it should have been done, which is the global best practice right now?
Mr. Sowore, I know that some Nigerians share that sense of despondency within the establishment and the system to say it looks like a hopeless situation. And that's why we're warning the APC now who are in power. 31 state governors. PDP has been here before, but not as much as 31, 28 in 2007. And now PDP is left with literally maybe 1 or 2 governors. So it's in cycles, like it comes full cycle. Where we're going to with the question is, not winning elective position without discountenancing the fact that, or with respect to the fact that people are concerned about the electoral process itself. I feel that the AAC, for instance, which you are at the vanguard, given what you've done on the streets and the results you produce from the streets, is also denying Nigerians the opportunity to have a solid opposition, say, in the National Assembly that will make, even if you're not as many as they are, you may be as few as 20, 25 or so, say in the House of Reps or in the Senate. But just, I'm saying this with reference to what the EFF does in the South African Parliament. We have the ANC, the DA, and MK, and now the EFF. But you know that when you go to the bench, when you go to the direction of the EFF, you're ready for some engagement, and you're not going to pass through easily, even if you have the numbers. That is where we're coming to say, how can the AFC transit from advocacy on the streets and activism to actively getting into elective office as soon as possible so that we'll get some formidable opposition?
Well, we cannot predict that because you have to understand that you can't jump the hoop of electoral malfeasance with, first. You have to discuss it. It's important that we discuss how people get elected into office. And when you see us on the street, we are the ones advancing the argument and advocacy and even the struggle for transparent elections. Because we know that the moment we have transparent elections, the moment people's votes count in this country, so many of these people that you parade as political strategists to win elections cannot even win the elections in their own households. That is why we're on the street. We are not on the street for the sake of it. We're on the street to ensure that we expand the democratic space wide enough so that people's votes can count. When we get to the point where your votes count, then you can come back and challenge us if we don't win elections. But as long as you don't organize elections, or you rig elections before they happen, or you don't allow public participation in the democratic process, you kill people, you grab ballots, you bribe judges with houses so that they can determine for you election results that you didn't win, then we cannot have these arguments and be fair to anybody. So the argument has to start with having democratic elections, transparent elections, free and fair elections, credible elections. Until those things are in place, and nobody should come and say, well, you can't get perfect elections. Nobody's asking for perfect elections, but we're having for elections, not selections. That's what we're asking for.
I'm looking through your manifesto. I mean, a lot of people view you as left-wing in that sense, and your manifesto, which I doubt a lot of people may have read, because largely people just want to see you on campaign ground, dancing, speaking and doing what we've seen over time. Perhaps the next election will change that. But back to your manifesto, I see the breakdown, the different pillars that you've put forward. Pillar 1 is security, stop the bleeding, address root causes of active security concerns, justice, public accountability, succor for victims, then green economy, goes on and on. Well, I encourage people who want to support your party to take a look at that. But I see here that you say that the AAC is an anti-imperialist, Pan-African, eco-socialist party committed to the struggle for the total liberation of the Nigerian people. And I'd like you to break that down, right? Because Nigerians have tried all sorts. We've tried military, we've tried PDP, the APC. A lot of things have been tried, and I don't know how well this will resonate with them, right? So maybe break it down further, operationalize it for Nigerians to compare what they have now, what you're offering. And I wonder how long more you give Nigerians before they begin to fully resonate with you.
Well, you know, I don't have any crystal ball to look at how long they will catch up. I just know that we don't have much time left. As Nigerians, we're already under siege. The country is going to be leveled down if you continue the trajectory that we are going now. And this one is not a doom prediction. It is a reality that is facing everybody in terms of security, hunger, unemployment, and the general condition of the people. But to break down what we mean by anti-imperialism, maybe for those of you who need a proper breakdown of it, is that we want a country that is governed by ourselves and not driven by people who believe that we are subservient to them. One of the examples is Donald Trump, who woke up one day and just decided that, you know, I'm looking for a place to bomb on Christmas Day, and he decides to bomb Nigeria. That is some level of, you know, neocon level imperialism, the one that imposes upon you an economic system that knows will bleed you to death through the structural adjustment program that they've called different names since 1989, SAP, through the World Bank loans that we don't need that are given to people who then steal it and take it back to the West where it came from, or through consultants who take the largest chunk of the loans that we get, and these things don't get here. That is imperialism, you know, economic imperialism. You know, there's also cultural imperialism in which people tell you that your culture is inferior to their own. Their music must be the one that is played on your airwaves. It may not be, you know, as direct as that. Those are the kind of imperialism. But the socialist part of it is that the nation owns its resources and it uses it for its people, such that somebody don't come and lie to you that after you build a power plant, 10 of them, that, you know, you don't deserve to run it as a nation state to the benefit of the people. You give loans, you give grants to third parties that you call entrepreneurs, geniuses, and to run these platforms, and you still go back and pay for, through your nose, to get what you built from the ground up. That is the socialism we are talking about. We are not saying that people should not be entrepreneurs, no, but we're saying that we must be able to regulate and control what comes into our country and what we produce, and that the production of goods and services must belong to the people and not a few who then decide what to pay to people as peanuts, you know, peonage in the production system. So it's an economic system that we are saying must be controlled by the people who are the workers. The people who produce must have the largest control of the economy, not the people who don't go to work, who then call it profits and deny the rest of you what is your own naturally. Your natural resources, your sweat should belong to you, and you should be the ones determining those. And that is what ordinarily should have been democracy. That's why we keep asking every day for, you know, dividends of democracy. How can you have dividend of democracy when you are the only one in the democracy who has to make all the efforts, and the people who don't make any effort control what you get? And that's why we then have what they call stomach infrastructure. During elections, you go and ask people to queue up in Sowore somewhere, and you start dashing granuts and peanuts to them. Whereas these people could be wealthy at some levels that would be considered unbelievable today. It is what is happening to the people of Saudi Arabia, even if you don't want to call that, socialism. But even in the U.S., that claims to have a system that is not socialist, they have social welfare programs that even make those of us who are outsiders who have lived there to benefit better than we benefit in our country.
So the
where some of these resources like oil come from.
Yes. Just as a follow-up, this vision of yours then, will it work under the current constitution as we have it? Or you also envision a total change in the constitution? Because obviously you need to build.
Never a time I ever told anybody that I believe in Nigeria. I don't believe in the Nigerian constitution. It wasn't the constitution. I've said this a zillion times. The constitution of Nigeria was the military version of what they thought they should give to us in 1999. It wasn't the most fraudulent constitution in the world is probably the Nigerian constitution, because it has an opening that says we the people, and nobody participated both in the creation of that constitution, in sanctioning it and approving it as a constitution. So one of my priority when we get there will be to put in place a brand new constitution, just like the South Africans did when apartheid was defeated. It doesn't take that long. And that will encompass all of the issues that you've seen here. They did it in Bolivia. These constitutions are not rocket sciences to...
But here's a question, pardon me. So this is the same constitution that you're relying on. We just talked about you being in court, having a lawyer. So this is the same constitution that you're relying on to sort of vindicate yourself. This constitution, you say, empowers you to say certain things. This is the same constitution that your lawyer relied on to say, well, you can't ask me to do that, right? So to what extent, then, do you think this is double speak for those who may be thinking, but you're still relying on it?
It's not double speak, So I'm asking to change a condition that I disagree with, right? Mandela disagreed with the apartheid constitution. He still submitted to it. He was brought to court. He was sent to jail by the constitution. He defended himself based on that grand norm at that time. That is a constitution now doesn't mean it cannot be changed. The reason why it's still a constitution is because we haven't changed it. I am talking about driving the process that will change that constitution. If I could wake up by myself and change the Nigerian constitution, I'll write one overnight and just make it available to everybody to be using. But I don't have that power. That power belongs to the people. And that's why we're working with the people to get to that position where we change those constitutions and anything that is not relevant to our existence and progress. So you cannot blame me for a military constitution that was promulgated into law in 1999. I was not responsible for that. But you can blame me if I continue to live under that constitution when I have an opportunity to change it. That is when the blame can go to me.
I'm wondering, one cannot argue against the potency of ideas, your ideas as contained in your manifesto, because they are not new. They are just not popular against the backdrop of the Nigeria that we have known. But I'm wondering how it would look like an AAC-led government, which is an anti-imperialist in a heterogeneous country like Nigeria, which has the establishment backing the old order. But talk to us about... because you say that until we begin to have democratic elections, things will not change. Are you by that admitting that the AAC cannot get ahead as far as elections are concerned as we approach 2027? The AAC cannot win as many slots as possible in elective positions. And will you be standing for elections in 2027?
Well, let me first answer your question that the backdrop of Nigeria supports imperialism. That's a wrong assertion. It's because Nigerians haven't had the opportunity to change their objective conditions, and that's why Nigerians struggle every day to fight against everything they say is wrong. There is nowhere in the DNA of a Nigerian that they prefer imperialism to liberation, that they prefer colonial masters dictating their economic life, dictating their cultural lives. Nowhere. And Nigerians are fighting north and south against imperialism. The guys in the Niger Delta region who took up arms against oil companies and the Nigerian government for what they did to the environment are anti-imperialism. The guys in the north who are saying they don't want intervention in Nigeria and protest against imperialism, guys in the southwest, who always tell you, as the Yorubas say in their palace, that Aguda Jelabe Gesi, which means that you cannot impose your culture on me, even though I might be tolerant of it. They're anti-imperialism, so there's nowhere in our system. But as per your question as to whether in not believing in elections, we do not expect that we will have slots or seats in the next election. No. Our position is that we will force the democratic space open, whether they like it or not, in a revolutionary way. And that's why our party is a revolutionary party. And we are calling on Nigerians that we can make it happen. And we have been around since 2018 as a political party. Just like the ANC had been around since, I think, 1918 and didn't win election in 1994. I'm not in any way insinuating that we can't win election, but I'm saying that for us to discuss winning elections, we must first and foremost have elections first. We must stop the culture of selection. You must stop the culture of people being sworn into office when they don't win elections or they rig elections, and you have professors announce these fake results and you accept them. It is that acceptance of this misnomer that is making you ask the question as to who could win election and could. You're not organizing elections, so you can't win what is not. It's just like going to a football match, and before you get there, the referee has already said the match is over when you are still putting on your jersey. Can you call that a World Cup? That's not what we should be accepting, even in our public discourse. We must reject the culture and practice of not organizing elections, or organizing elections that are not at par with international best practices. That is what we are talking. And the moment we get past that stage, like I said, you can come and ask me if I don't win election. As per what I'm running in the next election, the party, I told you, would have primaries. There's a calendar already out in May. And the party primary winner will be announced to the country. Am I interested in becoming president of Nigeria? Yes. How soon? Very soon. Can we make it happen? Absolutely. What does it depend on? You people, Nigerians. And that answers the question about alliances that you asked earlier. Do you want to get into alliances that you can have strong opposition? I'm interested in being opposed to the system, but I'm not interested in joining opposition that is not opposed to the rot and the destruction that has been visited upon this country. I cannot be in opposition with the people whose only agenda, whose manifesto, whose demeanor is to come and loot, destroy, and render this country one of the worst countries in the world. That is not opposition till me. That might be opposition for the sake of opposition or for the nomenclature of opposition. And that's what has been our position. Is there not the solid opposition? The Nigerian people, the oppressed, workers, youth, and unemployed people. People who have been cheated, the weak, and those who are oppressed. That's the opposition we need. That's the solid opposition that we're driving and we want to drive. And we call on Nigerians not to look back and not to waste time in joining it up, because that will open up the country to you in a way that will bring about peace, prosperity, and progress, which is what everybody is looking for right now. But you can't find it with an opposition that is in bed with the ruling party. Just different people with different names.
Yeah, I think you painted an ideal situation, but let's be realistic, because Nigeria apparently is not an ideal situation. And the aspiration you painted, the ambition, is where all of us, literally every conscientious Nigerian wants to get to. We want to get to the poll and realize that the man who lost because he couldn't mobilize enough support. The man who won because he could. And the courts will not be making decisions that have been decided on the field. That is the big picture. Now, this is the challenge I have, and I would like you to see how we can fix it. The reason why we're talking about you and the AAC is because without being in government, we can see how you've affected the system and shaken up the establishment. I remember when the End Bad Governance protest by Take It Back movement started, literally the president was meeting with all kinds of groups, perhaps to see what they can do to stop that End Bad Governance. And we know how it ended eventually. We can go on and on with other things you've done. So what we're saying is that there's results we can track as far as this is concerned. We believe, let me speak for myself, I believe that being in elected position can do more in terms of accelerated growth. But your argument is, let's have election first. Now, the process of making sure we have the right election will still be decided by these people that you condemn, you speak about, especially in the National Assembly, given what played out with just one clause, 60, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act, that there was a proviso which a lot of people spoke against, and they say in their wisdom, for whatever reason, they added it up. So how do you want to effect that kind of change being outside? For how long will being outside be favorable to the system? I think that is the simplest way I can put the question.
So the point you raised is the same I've addressed all day long. You had just talked about the National Assembly, and stylistically or stylishly, you're advising that we should go and populate the National Assembly. But you also have forgotten that in 2023, I'm sure you didn't forget, but just to remind you, that a political party in this country mobilized people to the National Assembly. They had candidates, they even won governorship elections. And the question you don't ask yourself is that if you don't have the ideal situation, what happens? You send in people to the National Assembly, this National Assembly or whatever you call it, consumes them. All the Labour Party National Assembly people, where are they today? The Labour Party governor in Abia is Labour Party governor, APC, as in practice. So there's nothing wrong with having an ideal situation. And if ideal situation is proper and acceptable, then the people must embrace it so that they can live ideal lives. Because we've suffered for too long, submitting ourselves, subjecting ourselves, and surrendering to a situation you and I describe as not ideal. So when are we going to make the switch? Is the question you should be pushing, is the agenda you should be pushing, is the advocacy you should be pushing to the people, that here is an opportunity, which you have testified to, that there are guys that are different. There are guys who are willing to do right by you, that wants to send your children to school, that want to construct roads for you, that want to ensure that your children get jobs, or you have, pension when you're done with, work, or that you can have hospitals to go to, and you know them. Why don't we start now? It's not too late, because we are running out of time on that spectrum that you have decided. I am not one of the people who accept or believe that our political future or our destiny lies in the hands of people who have not done the right thing by the people. I'm not one of those people. I am just calling that we should, wherever you are queuing up on the wrong side, let's join this very long queue that will take us to the promised land, as we like to describe it, and have prosperity, have progress, have peace, have security, have employment in this country, have health care, have food. That's not too much to ask for. And that's ideal. And nobody should live outside of the ideal life that we all deserve and desire. And it's here. Let's embrace it.
Well, Mr. Sowore, we have, very short time to the elections. You say you're going to conduct primaries, and we'll see who your candidate is. So there'll still be some time to have these debates on, a proper level with other candidates as well. But we have to thank you so much, Mr. Sowore, the presidential candidate in 2023 of the African Action Congress AAC party. Thank you. I wish you the best.
Thank you for having me.